Like Ezra Miller being a complete menace to the citizens of Hawaii, I truly don't believe that this movie is capable of probably making the rest of its theatric run without every single thing that happened behind the scenes coming out and just spilling into the open. So, I wanted to take a second to talk about the three endings of this movie because this really reflects not just how absolutely chaotic the entire production for this film was and the leadership of WB is, but it also makes me worried about what we're going to receive in the future going down the line. So, the very first of the endings that we were supposed to receive was under Walter Hamada. Now, if you have been a part of this channel since the beginning, I have been talking shit about Walter Hamada for like the better part of 8 years. Ever since he more or less fast tracked Batman v Superman instead of allowing Man of Steel 2 to happen and the Batman standalone film with Ben Affleck to happen, I was like, Hamada is not our guy. And I'm gonna be honest, still not our guy. So 4 years ago, no, 3 years ago, they were doing a Batgirl movie, and Ben Affleck was coming out of his divorce from Jennifer Garner, and he was basically a high functioning alcoholic at the time. It's one of the reasons why, if you watch Batman v Superman, then watch Joss Whedon's Justice League, it really feels as though you're looking at someone who's just run down and super tired. That wasn't Ben Affleck playing Batman that way. That was Ben Affleck like waking up from being drunk for the last 72 hours, filming his scenes, and then going back to his trailer to drink some more. He was really in like this dark part of his life that he ended up working his way out of. And it's one of the reasons why, if you watch him acting in Joss Whedon's Justice League and then watch him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's night and day. It's two completely different actors. One actor's phoning it in because he's literally inebriated all the time. The other actor is giving it his all because he's having a blast with the director and the people around him. But the first ending that we were supposed to receive under Hamada would have had Michael Keaton as the new DCEU Batman and Sasha Calle as essentially Supergirl. Now, there were rumors back then that Walter Hamada had more or less washed his hands of both Ben Affleck after the Joss Whedon situation and washed his hands of Henry Cavill. Like I said, Walter Hamada was not the person to be in charge of the DC brand, but he was planning on making the core of his new Justice League both Batgirl and Supergirl, where Supergirl was going to take over for Superman, and then Batgirl was essentially going to be trained by and take over the mantle from Batman, which is one of the things that the Batgirl movie was supposed to be about, which was her basically taking up the mantle, encountering the Robin that they were going to cast for that film, which I don't think they actually casted a Robin. I believe the film was canceled before he was casted, or he was casted in secret and shot in secret, but then the film was canceled anyway, so we'd never get to see it. And he was going to train her to basically be the new protector of Gotham. That never happened. All of that essentially fell to pieces, and Walter Hamada essentially like washed his hands of trying to control the circus, and the circus ended up in the hands of DeLuca and Abdi, who were the next group of individuals who basically took over control, not really of DC, but more or less of the Flash. Their ending is actually an ending that I feel as though I would have went with, which is the ending would have had Cavill, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and Ben Affleck's Batman, essentially at the courthouse to meet Barry Allen. That seems like the most stable. And like I've said it before about in my last video talking about how this movie kind of sidesteps, avoids, and then trolls essentially what Zack Snyder and all of these actors basically built, where they pop up for a second and then they're never referenced again and just thrown away. And it should have, in the fact that they've hyped this movie up as being the end of the Snyderverse and the DCEU, it should have really honored the actors who were the mainstays of these roles for the last 10 years. It would have been nice to see Gal Gadot. It would have been nice to see Ben Affleck, and it would have been nice to see Henry Cavill, the trio, all standing together. I would even bring Jason Momoa's Aquaman into this, all being there for Barry, with him getting him getting his father essentially out of jail. That would have been a really, really nice just homage and a really, really nice send off for all of these people. But we didn't get that. What we got was the James Gunn ending, which had George Clooney return to be the new Bruce Wayne. Now, here's the thing. George Clooney absolutely despises his time as Batman. He has never been shy about the fact that, like, he felt as though he was kind of put into, like, a really, really bad Batman movie, and then the fans just tore into his ass for the next few years. More or less because his Batman movie was progressively worse than Val Kilmer's Batman movie, which was progressively worse than both of Tim Burton's Batman movies. And a lot of people blame George Clooney for essentially putting Batman on the ice until Christopher Nolan came along, and him and I can't remember his name right now. Like, he's in my head. I see him. He's John Connor. He's American Psycho. He's Ford versus Ferrari. His name isn't coming to my head. Christian Bale. Until now I've forgotten the director's name. I'm horrible at this. I'm sorry. But a lot of fans blamed him for the fact that Batman was put on ice for all those years because of how bad that movie was in. So I don't know what type of magic James Gunn pulled. I don't know what djinn he made a wish to. I don't know how he contacted Mephisto, but in some way, shape, or form, he was able to get George Clooney to come back and cameo as Bruce Wayne one more time. And that in and of itself is a Herculean feat. However, did we need an ending that was just another joke? I don't believe so. I believe that the best ending would, in all honesty, been a blend of the two. I still think that Michael Keaton's Batman should have died. And he basically should have been able to go out his heroic death fighting that diesel-ass Kryptonian. But I believe that if you wanted Sasha Calle to be the core going forward, or a core going forward, or a mainstay, you bring in Sasha Calle, you bring in Henry Cavill, you bring in Gal Gadot, you bring in Jason Momoa, you bring in all of these characters, and you have them all there for Barry. So that when Barry sees both Cavill Superman and Calle Supergirl, he's like, yo, what were y'all past like? Like how? And then they go into like the explanation about what's going on with the both of them and why. Or you leave us on like a cliffhanger, like, oh my god, yes, she got the happy ending, which is she was able to make it to Earth with Clark. And I would even hope that she still crashed in Smallville, and her and Clark basically hid out and stayed with the Kents, and the Kents just basically raised them to the best of their abilities. She's a little bit more rougher around the edges because she's a full-blooded Kryptonian who remembers Krypton, but we still get that quintessential Superman from the Midwest. That would have been the better ending than the ending that we essentially got. I was not a fan. Like, don't get me wrong. In the theater, I laughed. It was super funny seeing George Clooney essentially be the Batman that he ends up with in his new universe. But at the exact same time, once you walk away and you start thinking about it, you're like, you really should have done a little bit more with Callie. You really should have brought back the older actors to be more a part of this movie. I really feel as though the tension and the story, if you weren't going to do Eobard Thawne, I still think that the story that you were attempting to tell with older Barry and younger Barry, with the older version learning from his mistakes and the younger one still making those mistakes, there was a better story to tell if you had a darker version of Aquaman fighting a more genocidal version of Diana, with Callie's Supergirl in the background being emaciated and being rescued by the Flash and the team, and Ray Fisher's Cyborg is there in like this new reality to help him out. We That's what I was talking about when I'm talking about legacy. You honor the people who came before. But let me know what you think. Like, what's your, out of these three endings, what is your favorite? Did you prefer the first one, which was basically Sasha Calle and Michael Keaton taking over the roles of the mainstays of that new universe? Did you prefer the second one, which was the old guard of Cavill, Gadot, Momoa, Fisher, all of those individuals being there for Barry because they're his Justice League? Or did you prefer the jokey ending that James Gunn chose to go with in regards to George Clooney, his Batman being the one who comes back? Let me know. Comment down below, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.